Thank you guys for coming to check out another episode of Moon Road Podcast. I want to preface this particular episode by saying that I did run into audio technical difficulties, and apparently my audio was not synced to my microphone. Instead, it was synced to my computer. So me as the host, I don't have the greatest of audio for this particular episode, but my guest Truth Seekah does. And he was a great guest, and we had a great conversation. So I just want to preface it with that before you guys are like, hold on, what's going on with Blue's, audio? Yes, I ran into that problem, and it is what it is. I picked up the mic from my laptop instead of picking it up from my mic, which you are hearing me from right now. But yes, I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Let's get right into it. Welcome to the Moon Road Podcast. I am your host, Blue Friday. I have a special guest on tonight, Truth Seekah. Truth is a musician, an author, a speaker, host of the Truth Seekah podcast, and a Christian mystic. Truth, welcome to the show.
Hey, Blue. How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Everything is good. Thanks for coming. I'm actually grateful that you accepted the invitation. I hit you up. I seen your episode on Coast to Coast.
Nice.
And that's how I became aware of you. I've been a Coast to Coast fan for many years, from back in the day. And I was listening to the shorts on Spotify, and I was like, I seen, your episode pop up, and they do like the little feature set where they put like 15, 20-minute clip. And I'm like, who is this? I'm listening to the story, and I'm just like, this is like, I don't even know the word for it, but I'm like, this is a cool like story. And so in my head, because I come from a Christian background and whatnot, I'll get into that later if if it so permits, time permits. But I'm like, this is interesting because a lot of stuff that I've seen growing up, and a lot of the stuff that my grandfather told me about him being like heavily involved in the Christian thing as a pastor and being born around in the 30s and 40s and things that he experienced. I'm like, this kind of resonates with a lot of stuff stories I've been told. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. I'm gonna find him, kid him up, and see if he wants to like just talk about things for on the podcast. So I hit you up, and here we are. But so I want to just start from like the beginning. I want to start like from like your background and how you came into Christian mysticism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. For me, all of this starts with, me being a little kid, as far back as I can remember. At my earliest memories of being around 4 years old and waking up in the middle of the night and having a shadow being on my chest, two of them, one on each side, pinning me down to the bed. And so that experience stuck with me, and it had an influence on the type of movies that we rented as teenagers and sleepovers and telling ghost stories. And I would ask people questions if they've ever seen this. And you'd hear different stuff from different people. People would say that they have little people come in their room and their dad had something like that happen to them, and just these different stories. And it intrigued me, and it led me towards that kind of stuff, and supernatural stuff and horror movies and stuff. And needless to say, as a teen, I got introduced to the occult. And so I got into like Satanism and Wicca and witchcraft, Necronomicon, anything that I could get my hands on at an early age, and ended up like opening up doors to the other side. And it wasn't good. It was negative, and was going crazy, losing my mind. These beings were trying to communicate with me and pulling me in and out of trances and portals at will. And I couldn't turn it off and on, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. And there was a bunch of them trying to talk to me at once. And it was really causing psychosis and schizophrenia. And I was like 14, 15 at this time. So kind of hit rock bottom. And I'd been a Christian a few years before, and I knew that there was peace. I knew that there was solace and safety in that. And so I kind of got chased back to that. I needed to find some stability in my life and to shut those doors that I opened. And that was something that I knew that I could go back to find healing and peace in my life. And I did at age 15. So it was September 7th of 2000. I rededicated my life to Christ, and I've been a Christian ever since.
Mhm.
And
Now, at the time, were you aware of like how real it was? Because some, like you said, psychosis can set in, schizophrenia can set in. Were you consciously aware of the realism of the stuff that was happening, how real it is, in as it pertains to your reality, or was you not aware of it at the time?
I became aware of it for sure, to know that it was real. But I think at first it was more of an intrigue. But it all stemmed back to, that 4-year-old experience of waking up with something in your room kind of thing. And but as far as knowing, something was real versus it all being in your head, like I have that, that memory. And, to be honest, I don't know what that was, and what, even if it was a bad dream, so there's that,
Right.
that aspect of it as well. But eventually, like, I became a Christian at 13 in 1998, 13, 14. And this was before I got really deep into the occult. And that initial experience of dedicating my life to Christ at a prayer meeting, I felt what they call the baptism of the Holy Spirit, just feeling this immense beauty and love come into the room and enter my body, and felt like fire. It was so beautiful and euphoric, and burned out all the wrong that I had ever done. And it was a supernatural encounter. I was just shaking and crying and weeping and burning with this beautiful energy. And we could build on top of that. We can engage it. We can tap into that energy whenever we wanted to. Anytime we would pray or begin to sing songs, like that feeling would come into the room, or we would come into alignment with it. And so I knew that something was real on the Christian side for sure, but then I didn't stay a Christian for long back then, only a couple months, but I knew it was real. And then I got into the occult.
And I want to get into that, because you said you wasn't for long. So when, at this time, you're around 14, 15 years old, take us through, like, you having these interactions and these, I guess these forces happening within your reality. What path are you on at this point in your life?
Back then, when that happened?
Yeah.
So it was kind of like dabbling just in occult stuff. I was so young at the time, but it was just kind of just like mostly music and a little bit of books here and there. Ended up moving away, and my mom moved in with somebody, and his son was a Christian, and he was a minister, and kind of was like an older brother type for me, and take me to play basketball and go swimming and all that kind of stuff, and ended up going to church, and that's all we did. Like, was hang out with the Christian people. I didn't know anybody in town, so all we did was go to prayer meetings. All we did was go to church. But it was awesome though, because it was like, for me, it really took the place of smoking pot and
Right.
and drinking, because it was like, it brought me to a place that was, it was like I got to escape. I got to escape my reality, my life, which is what I did when I would smoke pot. It would let me escape, and nothing mattered for that moment, And so we call it the presence of God, or the Holy Spirit would, like, anytime we wanted to pray, or anytime, we had that intention, it would be this beautiful encounter. So, yeah, I was, trying my best. I was still a teenager, I wasn't perfect or nothing like that, but I definitely, my heart was in it, and it was all brand new to me,
Yeah.
I was hungry.
So
for
how would you describe the journey or the process from then to who you are as a man now? Was there any hills, the proverbial hill that you had to climb, any mountains, or just life situations that you had to go through to get to the point where you are right now as a man.
Yeah. So again, that was like my introduction. And then I fell away from that and got deep into the witchcraft and the occultism. And that's when things got real for me. And there was probably about a 2-year period where I got into that until I hit rock bottom. And then I rededicated my life to Christ. But within that period, I physically saw beings manifest in front of me and my cousin and attack us, knock us to the ground. And I knew it was real. So I knew that the energy and the essence of the Holy Spirit or Jesus was real, but also knew that these darker entities were real as well. But leaving that stuff and fully pursuing the light, it was a long, hard road for me because I opened up like so many doors in my mind. Again, they didn't want to let go. It was months, if not years, for me to, retrain my mind and feel normal, if that was even possible. You know what I'm saying? Because you're sitting in the same room with people and you can see in dimensions, you can see in other realms, you can see stuff on them, things about, like, it was a heightened sense of that. So just going to church and being a Christian and being like heightened senses of all of this stuff, it was so hard to even have a conversation with somebody, so it took a long time. It took a long time just to have dinner with someone, just to be able to have a conversation that wasn't spiritual. You know what I'm saying? Like it was wild, man.
And you know how the Christian community is. They hear the word mysticism and they like I grew up in the church, right? And like they'll hear these words, and to them it's like buzzwords for like, okay, this is a counter whatever my teaching is or whatever. But so did you ever, like, as a person that was more open and receptive to what the Bible is, really getting into, as a person that was more open-minded to that reality of the word, did you ever face any type of like backlash or people not understanding where you're coming from, things like that?
Yeah. They would say even early on, when it was just total innocence. And for me, like, they would say we were too serious. Like we wanted to pray. We were teenagers, man. It was 17 years old at the time. And, we would have prayer meetings at our home, and we'd bring the youth over there and man, we had revival, man. Like kids getting filled with the Holy Spirit for the first time and dedicating their life to Christ. And we're bringing people to church. Like we're going out getting people that come in our house to pray, and then we're bringing them to church. So like the numbers are growing, but the members, the pastors and youth pastors and leaders, they'd be like, man, why don't you guys just go see a movie? Why do you guys have to pray? And it would always blow my mind. It's like, man, people are like, people's lives are getting changed, you know what I'm saying, for the better. And you're asking us not to do this, like bring them to church to pray. Don't go to your house or go to the park. Everywhere we went turned into a prayer meeting, man. And like people's were dedicating their life to Christ, and they were having encounters with the divine, man. And, but yeah, they would ask us not to do that. And, they would tell us not to I was a gospel rapper, and, would travel to churches and tell my story. And I talk about demons, man. Like it's, it's real to me. It's my life, and it was Jesus's life, man, and, they would ask us not to talk about demons, even with like, I would go to centers where people were at like rehabs and stuff, where people are strung out on crack and meth and dope and stuff. And I would preach about the addictions and strongholds and demons and stuff. And they'd always ask me not to talk about it. And it blew my mind,
It is. And it's weird because it's like, it's so like, if you read the scripture, if you read scripture, if you read the Bible, it's like, that's what we're that's what they teach us to do. We meet people where they're at. We don't have people meet us where we're at. We go out and we try to reach them and connect to them. So when you see people actually doing that, it always comes to a shock to my mind. And like I said, I grew up around these environments, so I understand what you're saying. And I'm letting the people that don't know, they just don't know how this stuff is. And it's like, yo, it's like everyone doesn't know that this church is here on 72nd Street, and like there's people that need help that's out there that we need to reach. So to have that internal backlash within the community, it's always been mind-boggling to me. But it is something that's there that it just doesn't make sense. But it happens. So I want to ask, as far as like, do you believe that people's superstitions inhibit them from fully experiencing their spiritual nature?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
I know it's a loaded question, but.
Well, you have a lot of people who, I say it all the time, people who claim to be spiritual, but they're only superstitious.
Right.
They have phobias, or they're afraid of, black cats, or they're not going to walk under a ladder or something like that. And so you have these superstitions that hold you back, they, and they're not true, they're not real. And so a lot of it within religion or whatever, what people would think would be the occult, or people would think would be witchcraft or something. What I've come full circle with all of this, most of that's in the Bible, and it's for it. It's actually like the disciples were being visited by angels and being taught in the dream state and going into trances and leaving their body and traveling to heaven and healing people. Just so much stuff that was going on. So many secrets that are hidden. And the word occult simply means that which is hidden. So that which is hidden from some is openly revealed to others. So a lot of stuff by implication or by association, people think it's demonic or something because they've been told that or whatever. But there's a lot, and my work has definitely been to reclaim that stuff from a biblical perspective, that it was good. So much stuff. Again, just the things I named a while ago, but also divination, and communing with the divine and so much more, man. And crystals,
and
all that.
The fact that it's in there and it's willfully ignored is the thing that baffles me. Because it's like I read the Bible. I don't read it all the time, but I read it enough to know what you're talking about. And it's you get the parable of the sower. That was in the Bible, and I think Mark 4. And basically, Jesus was saying to them, I will tell you the secrets to the kingdom of God, but for the rest of them, I will only speak in parables.
Yeah.
And I used to read this all the time. And I'm like, yo, what is he talking about? Because it's like a parable within a parable, and it's called a parable. And I'm like, okay, what is he talking about? And as I read it, he was talking about sowing seeds.
Yeah.
And well, maybe the birds will eat the seeds, or maybe the soil is not good enough, or maybe it will uproot itself because of things and things like that. And it made me start to think about the secret teachings and the mystery teachings of the Bible. Jesus specifically told us, I'm going to, most of the stuff that has to do with the secret of the kingdom of God, I'm going to say it in riddles, parables, because those that get it, that mean they've earned it in a way. You get what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. So that's what I got from it. I'm like, oh my God, that's so deep, because I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. It kind of shows you the divide in people. It's like, okay, you don't understand this, or you're I guess you're against this, you're anti this, you say this is the occult because you simply don't understand. You just don't understand it, and it's so weird. It's so crazy because Jesus himself said that in the Bible, there will be people that just won't understand this stuff. Yeah. So yeah, and it just make me think about it.
The parables and the mysteries meet people where they are, according to the light that is within them. You know, if they don't have no light, they're not going to, if they don't have no understanding, if they don't have no good deeds, like all of that is light. You're bringing light to your understanding, and you have to, it has to be illuminated when you understand the scriptures. You got people out here reading the Bible trying to find Noah's Ark. They're trying to find Goliath's skull and the Ark of the Covenant, and they're trying in the ancient temple. And they're like literally on excavations trying to find this stuff. And like,
I've seen some of that.
They missed it. They totally missed it. Like, you know, it says that you have to be illuminated with the light of the Holy Spirit or the light of Christ to even be able to understand the scriptures. It tells you that in Corinthians. They're riddles, like you said, parables and dark sayings that are hid. They're hid from people, but it's hid right under your nose. But if you don't have the understanding, you're not going to get it. So you got two people looking at the same thing, but seeing two different things.
Way different things. And I was talking to my friend about this not too long ago. And I told him, like, yo, like, he was like, why did you leave the church? Like, why did you stop going to church? And I was like, you know what, that's a good question. And because I did stop going to the church, I'd rather just read the Bible myself and make my own, you know, analyses of things. But I told him, I said, when you go to church, basically what you're doing is you're trusting someone's interpretation of this book. So when you love your pastor and things like that, and you deify your pastor, you're basically saying, I trust his interpretation. Because at the end of the day, these are just interpretations of things. So if he opens up Psalms 20, whatever, he'll say, this is what this means. But then you'll go to a different church 2 blocks away, and he'll say, this is what this means. You'll go to a church in a different state, and they'll say, this is what this means. So to me, I'm like, okay, first of all, the way I interpreted that is most of the pastors didn't interpret it the way I interpret it. And second of all, how do I build that relationship with God without doing that deep inner work myself instead of having it just told to me? You know, because there's a certain degree of wisdom and knowledge that comes from doing it yourself, studying yourself, having these people say awakenings or epiphanies, having these things yourself. They come by way of doing that work. So my thing is, you know, a lot of as Christians, where a lot of the stuff that you really need to look into and get into, it's like off guard. You know, it's like, don't look at that though. Don't read this book. Don't read, you know, the book of Enoch. Don't read the Gospel of Thomas. Don't look at them things. And even when it comes to the books that were permitted, they're like, but don't interpret it like that. When Jesus says the dark sayings, he doesn't mean it like that. When he says to meditate, he doesn't mean to like meditate. But I'm like, yes, he does. Like, he's telling us to meditate. And I used to go to church and they'd be like, no, don't meditate, pray. Meditation is like some Eastern philosophy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The word meditate is like mentioned over hundreds of times in the Bible. So and this is why, like, it just blows my mind. And I'm like, yo, what is like really going on? So when I see the work that you're doing, I'm like, okay, this is a person that gets it. And I mean this honestly, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show, but I'm like, this is a person who kind of gets it, you know? So how, as in your journey, how has people received what you're doing? Has it been positive? Has it been negative? Has it been a little bit of both? How is it there?
It was mostly negative until there was a shift. You know, there was, you know, like even doing my podcast, it was laughed at and scoffed and ridiculed, and people would talk about you and say, you know, they'd make UFO jokes or alien jokes or conspiracy jokes and stuff like that. And it was always laughed at. And I've been doing this for a long time, you know, and I had to go off by myself and learn and study. And I didn't have many people to talk to. So I had to go to Jordan Maxwell and esoteric philosophers who had different interpretations of the Bible, and they had a beautiful understanding. Now, nobody has it all figured out themselves. It's here a little, there a little. Everybody has a piece of it. And and I think it's designed that way for a reason, for us to come together with our pieces. But anytime you get into this place of, no, don't listen to them or stay away from them, or that's wrong and this is the only right, and you're getting into like, duality, really. So for me, I had to look into Santos Bonacci and understand some of these scriptures that I was reading that pastors tell you to pray against, or don't read it, or you'll find out when you get to heaven. And no, I want to know now. I want to know what this means. And people, because they've been raised differently and they've studied other stuff, so it gives them a better illumination in the scriptures when they read it, whether it's astrology and how it attains to your body, how the kingdom of heaven is your body, and it is above you, and it is below you, and it is within you. So your anatomy is in the Bible. Everything is in there. So I was persecuted as far as just like ridicule and all that stuff until it started catching on. You know what I'm saying? And then my podcast got popular. My work started to pay me. You know what I'm saying? Like and opening up doors for people. And I started doing this full time. And now I get to do this for a living, to make the music that I do and write the books and have beautiful discussions like this for a living. So a lot more of the church are opening up to this stuff too. Like I said, at first it was like a pioneer into something that was, testing the water. And then everyone kind of seeing how, oh, wow, it's working for him. He can talk about these things and be okay. So like early on, man, we're talking about psychedelics from a Christian perspective, the occult. And I always hit it with the Christian perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like still my faith and my foundation, but not talking down or, belittling stuff that I didn't agree with or I didn't understand, being open up to have a bigger conversation. And it started working, man. And I was saying what people were thinking, and that's what it's cool now because there's a lot more. This is opening up the door for a lot more Christian mystics, if you will, people to own their story and to explore as well.
You made a good point that I caught when you said that people were like, okay, he's doing this, and people are receptive to it. As far as like the traditional Christian community, I seen that growing up. Like I had family members that were pastors, and I would notice like what they say to me behind closed doors and what they say in front of the pulpit. Not saying they were telling false realities, but they would give me a more in-depth understanding of things. Then they would give like the congregation more of a streamlined, watered down, good for consumption and for the masses type of thing. And what you saying about like how when people see that as receptive, they're like, well, maybe I can go into this, because a lot of it really is fear. People will say, oh, we don't want to get into that because that's the occult, or that's this or that's that. But it's like, you just don't feel that it's comfortable to speak on these things now. And you see that in every realm of like politics, social, sociological stuff, like as far as like how the social dynamics is working in society at the time, where people are like more or less taken aback from certain things because they don't want to jump into something that is not accepted, even though it may go contrary to what they believe. So for you to even stand on that rock at first alone, because at the time that you're speaking of being 14, 15, on up, getting into gospel rap, talking about these things, I can tell you now, people were not receptive of that stuff. Because I'm 28, and I seen this at 5 years ago, 6 years ago. People weren't even receptive of this type of discussion, let alone an entire like way of thinking and things like that.
Yeah.
And I seen it, and it's just about probably 2-3 years ago where it's become something that, if not fully accepted, people will engage in it with you. So hats off to you just for standing that ground that long. Because I know a lot of people that would have just been like, you know what? I'm not doing this.
Well,
like, I'm not going down this path. It's taking too much energy.
man,
You
I had good friends, and I have good friends who believe a lot of the same stuff that I believe and have experienced a lot of this stuff and study it, and they won't talk about it. You know, they won't talk about it. And and I was like, well, since you guys won't, I have to. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So I had to do it even more. You know, I had to, because you would think that they would own their story and talk about what works and talk about what they believe, but because of ridicule, because of, you know, if my boss finds out that I do this or I believe this, I'm going to be in trouble. One of my buddies was going to this one little hole in the wall church, two of my friends, and they believe a lot of the same stuff I believe for sure. And they were going to these hole in the wall churches, and they were like, man, Truth, we want to get you to come to church with us. I'm like, yeah, I ain't really trying to go, man. It's like, man, come on, man. You know, power of God's moving. I said, hey, it sounds awesome, bro. Like, I'd love to, but I'm so busy, man. And I ended up waking up one morning, and I was like, one Sunday morning, I tried to call them and they wouldn't answer. I was going to go to church with them, and they never answered, and they slept in and didn't go. And then he had the nerve to call me. He's like, brother, I think the devil's put a spirit on you that you don't want to come to church.
Oh wow!
It's preventing
all that guilt tripping.
It's preventing you from coming to church, brother. I said, bro, I called y'all last weekend trying to come to church. What you mean? I'm not trying to go to church. Y'all tripping. And I had to tell him straight up. I said, hold on, because one of them is a rapper too, and he's working on an esoteric album that talks about scriptural stuff, the same music I do. And I said, bro, if them people find out that you're working on an album about aliens and meditation and trances and the third eye and aligning your chakras and breath work, if they find out that, I said, you're done. It's off with your head. If them people that you're fellowshipping with find out that you're working on a rap album that talks about this stuff, you're done. So no, I don't want to go and be a part of a community of people that I have to pretend to be something I'm not. That's what a hypocrite is. A hypocrite is somebody who wears a mask. You show up around these people. Oh no, I don't talk about aliens. I don't like magic mushrooms. I don't think that they can change the world and heal people's psyche and heal people's depression. No, I don't believe that. Hey, you know? And so now we're getting into this place of just authenticity, which is very sexy right now. You know, it's envious. So those Christians are like, man, he owns his story, and I can't believe because we're doing things that they've been told that we can't do. We believe things, and we're just a walking manifestation of the things that they wish they can do, but they can. But they gotta take that step. You know what I'm saying? From superstition and from the traditions of men, which is what Jesus warned us about from the get-go.
Right. And you gotta be open-minded. And that's important as far as like the authenticity part of it, is just that you gotta live your truth, man. Like, no pun intended, like you have to live your truth, because if you're just going along to get along, I don't think you will have any growth, not even spiritually, just even as a person. You can't have growth if you're just abiding by, okay, this is what I need to do to fit in, so I'm going to do that. I feel like everybody got a different path in their life, and I feel like anybody that dishonors that innate thing that's in them, whether it's like to be a great technologist like a Nikola Tesla, I feel like if he would have like not honored that innate feeling in him that just drove him to be that genius, he would be in a life full of peril, depression, stress, angst, you know. So even with your spiritual practices, if you know that God put it in you to be a person that understands the parables, so to speak, and you don't go down this path and to help others understand the secret teachings, the dark teachings, the parables, as they say in the parable of the sword, then I feel like you're going against your own spiritual genetic makeup in a sense. You know what I'm saying?
It'll drive you mad. and it did for me. You're out of alignment. You're out of balance. You're aligned with the things that you love, that I think God has put within you, the mysteries, and to go deep into reason. Not everybody's mind isn't built that way, to righteously divide the word and look at it from 7 perspectives and judge it and then see what it is. You know what I'm saying? Most people, the first thing they understand about the Bible is the last thing they understand. They don't even change or let it evolve. Right. You know what I'm saying? So people are just built different. But like, for me, it was, just this evolutionary process. And I tried to fight it, man. I tried to, cause it wasn't easy, bro. Like, to have all these people look up to you as a street preacher, as a Christian rapper, as a truth seeker, truth speaker, and then, as I started talking about this stuff here and there, or putting it in my music or doing a podcast, then they would say, oh, stay away from him. He's a devil worshiper now. So I went from somebody who's madly in love with Jesus to somebody now I'm a devil worshiper. Right, so they say, and you know what I'm saying? So, it was hard. Like, I was trying to go back and forth. Like, part of me is like, I'm like begging God to take this stuff away from me. Like, I don't want to talk about anything deep, anything esoteric, anything. I don't want to talk about it if this is what comes with it. And I tried to fight it. And God wouldn't let me, man. He's like, this is why I called you to this deep water. You understand? I need somebody who I can use as a light in the midst of all of that. And and it about drove me mad, bro. It was several months, if not several years, of the pendulum going back and forth. And who am I? And what does ministry look like? And are you really a Christian if you're doing yoga? And it was hard, but I went through that for a reason, and I got clear, and I owned my story. But it wasn't easy at all. It wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah. So what do you, in your words, right? Because, a lot of times people don't understand, like, okay, it shouldn't be this way. And I watched a couple of your, podcasts, and I know that you said the same thing, as where it shouldn't be where I have to distinguish myself as a Christian mystic, because a lot of what's in the word is in itself mysticism. So by being a Christian, you are by default this, yet you just don't know it.
Exactly.
But with all that said, what do you believe it, or what would you define it as to be a Christian mystic in the right, as far as what you are right now?
I would say, 100% both of whatever you think a mystic is, and that's just, again, beauty in the eye of the beholder. What does your mind go to? For me, a mystic is somebody who simply enters into like a deep inner dialogue of contemplation of the divine, and you're able to see the divine. You're able to see God's hand in everything, and everything that I look at is a portal to God. It's an emanation of the one. Nothing can exist without it. So there is no, he's only here, he's not there, labeling all this, but all is God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is one. So moving away from duality and more into oneness, even though duality exists, but it exists for a reason, and there's beauty in it all. So, and so for me, that's what a mystic is. But the mystical path is just, there's no limitations on it. And but I would say that I try to interpret everything through the scriptures to a degree of like what is able, what I'm able to do, or what they did, so that, because I do have a background that was dealing with darkness and demons and things, and that stuff is real, so most Christians, that fear or belief that the demonic is real hinders them from even any exploration or any even contemplation or going deeper into the, and I don't want to cut you off,
but do you feel like you taking that head on, facing it head on? Do you feel like that, how do I word this? Do you feel like facing them demons, them battles, with the forces that you face, do you feel like instead of running away from it and taking it head on, do you feel like that made you did that deepen your relationship with Christ, or deepened your understanding of, the mysticism within Christ?
Yeah, for sure. Because now I have a contrast, and the contrast isn't just to stay away. It's a contrast of light and darkness and depth, and in a respect, for that side and for those beings that are over there, the lower level. They exist for a reason. They have a job. If they didn't, they wouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, that's so wild, because the Bible talks about that. Like, and I don't want to botch it, so paraphrase it, or mess up the phraseology of it. But I remember reading in the Bible where basically God, or whoever was speaking at the time, was saying like, I created these things just like I created you, basically saying they're here to, even though they're wicked and we know that they're evil, they in a sense are here to serve a purpose.
Yeah.
Whether you know it or not, or else I wouldn't have created these things.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of Christians, I say a lot of people, a lot of Christians, they're not ready for that conversation, man. I've even the weird thing is they'll be open to a lot of stuff, but then when you talk about the dark side and how God uses everything for your good, like it's a reason, man. Your faith has to be tested and tried, and you gotta have consequences, man.
Yeah.
Like you gotta have consequences, and they are God's consequence.
Wow. Yo, what's so wild? I was reading, I read a lot of Carl Jung, and he talked about the shadow self a lot. And he was saying like, without that shadow self, and it's so crazy that you said this, the contrast word, the word contrast, I use that word a lot when it comes to certain things, because sometimes without that darkness, you can't really not only see the light, you can't appreciate the light.
Yeah.
And you get, if you don't have a mind to see both sides of things, you will always be pigeonholed in your experience of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you'll say you will get a whole picture, right? Something like the Bible is a whole story, but you'll miss out on what the light side of the story is if you don't ever traverse into that darkness. Like if you just completely say no, it's like, well, how do you compare and contrast what's happening in the light of the Bible if you never entertained anything that they say about the deep mystery teachings or the darkness or the dark sayings? How would you even understand the light?
Man, I was watching something today, and I found in the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? It was a scripture that was like, narrow is the portal and thin is the way that leads to Nibiru. And that's like, I think it was 2600 BC, 2100 BC was written, because it sounded just like the scriptures, man. You know what I'm saying? But you wouldn't know to make that connection if you never read it. And so when you're faced with those connections, when you're faced with those things that seem like they are a contradiction or something, like the cognitive dissonance that kicks in, like what does that person say? What is the excuse that they make up in their mind to say where that came from or whatever? And people, it's fight or flight, and they don't want, this stuff to be real, or it to be as open or as broad than it is. But, for me, it makes it more real, man, to see that it's so inclusive and it's in everything. It is in astrology. It is in your biology. It's in your physiology, your anatomy, your psyche. You talking about Jung, like, they're going to tell you how to break the script. He'll probably tell you just how to break the scriptures down according
just
to
off of the psychological level.
And it is real. But the problem I found with a lot of people is they'll think that their piece of the puzzle is the only piece. So maybe like a Jung would be like, now I don't know that he says this, but that the Bible is only psychological. And
I get what you're saying.
That the Christian would say that the Bible is only literal.
Right.
My friends who are deep into astrotheology will say that the Bible is only astrology, but the beautiful thing that makes it magical and so mystical is it's all of them. If, go back to the beginning, you understand the stories, if you understand the parables and the deeper meanings that relate all of this stuff together. And so for me, it opens it up so much more bigger. So I'm like, I know God this way, and this way, but I want to know him that way, that way, and that way. I want to know you. I want to gaze at the sun and feel your presence and your beauty. You know that I feel when I'm praying. Right. I want to breathe in and feel you filling up the temple. You know what I'm saying? As his smoke, his breath, his life comes in, I want to feel that. Like I want to know him on every aspect and every level. And we can, if your mind is willing to go there. And once you open it, then you read the scriptures, you'll begin to see all of those traces in a new layer, a new seal of revelation is unlocked by the light.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's profound, but it's like, it shouldn't be, but it is. Like what you're saying is profound. Like, because I understand what you're saying, right? But there is a large group of people who that would have just went past their head.
Yeah.
Like, because you breaking down like how like a psychologist, every time they reference the Bible, it's from a psychological standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You speak to a pastor, it's from a literal theistic standpoint. You talk about someone that's into astrology, they only look at the Bible through the prism of a lens that says stuff that's astrological, stars, moons.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is, no, let's take this, let's take that, let's take this, and let's try to understand the greater picture of what we're studying. Because, I mean, it's so, like, you look at the Bible, it's broken down into all these different books, and everybody had a different not only talent, a different field of study, a different philosophy. Job had a different philosophy than David. David had a different philosophy than what you would read something like the Ecclesiastes or Psalms. They had different philosophies in it. So, and I don't want to be long-winded, to pigeonhole the Bible down to psychology or just astrology or just theology is like, bro, you're missing so much, you know? So for you to try to bridge that together, it's admirable. I would say it's hard work.
For sure. Each one of them takes a lifetime.
Literally,
of study.
Literally, people have studied this theory till they died. Like just one aspect of it. Carl Jung, he studied only the psychological aspect of like biblical things, life things, till he died. That was his life's work. You got some people who only studied astrology. So to mount this all together, man, it just seems like a lot, you know? What keeps you, I would say, what's the word? Inspired, energized. What keeps you in that focus, that discipline?
What keeps me inspired?
Mm-hmm.
The mystery and the simplicity. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So they coexist together. You know, and I say in my lyrics, I'm lost within the mystery, right? Because it's like so vast. But the simplicity is so simple and so beautiful. So to never lose the modality, because you got people who just give their life over to the study of this stuff or the truth or whatever, but they never practice it. There's never like this prayer, this devotion, this there's never modalities that they can incorporate and things like that. So the two that work hand in hand, and then to see like, you know, it start making sense and clicking for people is huge. Mm-hmm. You know, I get messages every day from people, man, who, you know, they say, man, you're like my pastor and stuff. And I don't set out or try to be that, you know, but I am that, right? So you get shoe fits wear it. For those people, you become whatever it is to the people. And so I don't like people that marginalize. I don't like people that make others feel stupid or talk down to them. And you'll notice a lot of people, especially with biblical mysteries that have to go out, they don't have the fruits of it. They don't have this inner like prayer life, or it's all knowledge. There's not a heart. It doesn't connect with the heart. It's a head knowledge. So they're carrying it here, but you have to have the chakras aligned. It has to be real for every part of your life, and not just the head knowledge or lording knowledge over people. So I really hope to share the mysteries and the creativity and the expression and the exploration that comes with all of this. And no matter what seed I plant or what seed I water, I love to see people's, study and go deeper and stuff click and make sense for people, and how they can engage too and make it practical. You know what I'm saying? Not just a theory of, wow, that's deep. Okay, now this is deep, how the sun is a consciousness for God, or the sun is God, or the sun is Jesus. Okay, now go out and put your hands toward the sun, you know what I'm saying, and pray and see what happens. How do you feel? Look at the sun and close your eyes. Like, what do you feel? Like, make it practical.
Adding some practicality.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's true, because you have to get from a level of study to a level of application.
Yeah.
And that's with everything. I tell people all the time, man, like, all right, that's cool that we know this now, but how do we apply this to our lives? Yeah. And so speaking of the music, right? And how can I stand here? You say, salvation is my banner. I'ma hold myself to a standard. You always pull me out, and Lord, you never left me abandoned. I heard that and it touched me, because I went through some of your music, and as a person that wrote myself and produced, I know when I hear good songs, and the frequency that your song is resonating at, your music is like out of this world, like literally out of this world. Like, I haven't heard music like this in a long time. But going back to like them lyrics, like what it inspired a song like that, and to say things like that within the song.
Yeah, that was and I just re-uploaded that, but I wrote that in like 2010. So that was like just going through a lot of just hard times and being honest and not just talking to God, man. These realms that we can tap into where we just let the pen kind of write. And I feel like a psalmist, like the book of Psalms, like you just write about what you're going through and how you feel, and talking to God and praising God. Like, you're talking to God, talking about God, praise, like all in a song, and then talking about the emotions you're going through. So like, I look at Psalms, or I think of Psalms, I think of something like that, and a worship song too. But also, like, I think of like Tupac and stuff, man, how he just, like, you have a lot of similar stuff in the music that Pac was talking about, running from my enemies and, God, I need you. Where are you in my life? And like, you just open conduit, I guess, like whatever's within you. The Bible says out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So whatever's in you comes out. And so, I was going through a lot of stuff and just kind of like, I felt like real desperate and stuff, and just felt a release. And I got to perform that and sing that at a lot of churches back in the day. And it was like one of my biggest songs when I was doing Christian rap. Yeah.
It's a good song. Now, as far as the, like, you touched on this a little bit about, like, sometimes, like, you feel things, you're impelled to do certain things, and it's like a force that you have to do this. I studied people like Charles Bukowski and even Dante Alighieri. Was talking briefly beforehand about his work. And a lot of times, like, you read these people's stories, it's like almost a mythical thing that comes across them where they have to do this. A lot of times, Tupac mentioned, going back to him, he said, when I write rhymes, I go blind and let the Lord do his thing. But at my last holy, because I choose to smoke a blunt and drink a beer with the homies. And I remember him saying things like this, and I'm just like, When I write rhymes, I go blind and let the Lord do his thing. I'm like, yo, they talk about that in historical olden days, how like people would just be, and for lack of a better word, like possessed with a spirit that's like they can't explain how I know these visions or I'm writing these parables out, but it's something that comes over me. It's always like been astounding because even me, as I write my films, I'm like, how did I end up writing that in like an hour? Like, how did I do that? But it's like, where is it coming from? And do you believe, as from your own personal opinion, do you believe that people could tap into a creative vault? Or do you believe that is this something you could tap into, or is this something that's given to you? As far as, you know, people expressing themselves and things like that for the people that's listening.
I think both, man. And I'm still learning, you know, of channeling and what that is, and like channeling, we would think. So I have a song called Channels on the new album, and the idea of channeling is something that you do, right? You clear your mind and you let a spirit speak through you or something, right? Is the act of being a channeler. But I think that I'm moving closer to the fact that, you know, we are receivers, right? And so when you change the channel, you are a receiver that's able to pick up on a different frequency. Our hair are extensions of our nervous systems, you know, and that's we're true. Picking up on energies and ghosts, and even talking about it right now. I got chills talking about it, and because I'm finna say it, when you get chills and you feel that, you can tell when spirits are around. Your body is an antenna. Your hair is an antenna. I got chills all over my body right now. And you can tell when spirits are around that influence you, like whether it's your ancestors, whether it's just the collective thought. Man, I've been having these weird experiences lately where I'm writing all of this stuff intuitively. Like I wouldn't call it channeling, but it could be. But I had this encounter like a month and a half ago where like I felt the Holy Spirit come in my room, and just I was writing and I started crying, and everything just started connecting in the scriptures. Like all of this stuff started connecting, and it was about ascension, about light and how we are. Like it was just all this revelation that I was getting, and it wouldn't stop. Like it went for hours, man. And every time I would write a scripture and I'd type it out, I would have the next one that goes with it. And then the breakdown, I was like being taught as fast as I could write. And it lasted a whole week, but it was really intense for like 4 or 5 hours. And I was crying. It was just like a beautiful encounter. It was a staple moment in my life. And I never had nothing like that happen. And I got all this information, and I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, man, how do I articulate this stuff, man? Like I got it in the scriptures. I see it now. How do I articulate it? You know? And so this new realm or seal that was open for me. But I started reading this other book that I started. So there's a book by Annie Besant. She was part of the Theosophical Society, but she got a book called Esoteric Christianity. And I just opened it and read a little bit of it, and it was really good about bringing the mystery back to Christianity kind of thing, and not throwing your pearls before swine. And it was this really deep intellectual thing at one point that we've kind of given up, that it's for everybody now, right? And I put the book up, and I hadn't read it.
I don't want to cut you off, but the casting your pearls before swine, that kind of, it's just, as I'm listening to you, I'm learning, and you don't even know that you're teaching me, right?
Oh, because I know. That's why I felt the chill, the spirit on me.
I'm listening consciously, like I really listen when I listen to people, and I'm like, okay, casting pearls before swine, and then it goes back to the parable of the sword. Jesus saying, I'm going to give you the secret teachings of the kingdom of God, but to the rest of them, I'm going to speak. I'm going to basically kind of confuse how they hear it and understand it. Yeah. And I'm like, there was a time where there was an exclusivity to Christianity, and people don't realize this. Like there's a lot of text inside of the book, inside of the Bible, where they're talking basically about like, no, you have to earn this knowledge. You have to earn this wisdom. Yeah. You have to or, we're going to confuse certain people. We're not going to cast our, pearls, basically meaning wisdom, because in the Bible they talk about, they always associate, if people didn't know this, for y'all that didn't know this, they always associate like pearls and gold and rubies basically to like wisdom and knowledge and stuff. Like, they don't really mean pearls and stuff like that. But even that, like, to don't cast your pearls upon swine and stuff, it's like, yo, there was a very, very certain subtle level of exclusivity, and like, not everyone is meant for certain things in the Bible that no one ever discusses.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And it gets really deep, and to understand why it's written that way, and even the translations that we have today, the King James, like, what I'm finding out with that encounter that I had, that like, you got to break down the words, because like, Jesus taught parables, but the whole chapter is a parable. Like, you got to break down the actual meanings of those words. When it says like, they came into Capernaum, like, you got to break down the word Capernaum and see what it means. You got to break down the word, you got to know who the Pharisees are. You got to know who we read stuff and we just glance over it. But if we would break it down and let it unfold, it's a story within a story. So instead of just like breezing through it, oh, Jesus healed a blind man. No, like, how he healed the blind man, and what was causing him to be blind, and then where he told him to go afterwards, and the city that he was in that had to deal with his blind. Like, it really opens up really deep, so that you can see it. And it is for the initiated. You got to be initiated. But the beautiful thing is that I believe is that we're all initiated to a degree, into the invisible college, as some people have called it. And so where God and the angels and the demons and they're all our teachers there. And we're going through tests, and we have to take tests, and we study and we learn. And that's how we get to deeper levels of understanding and of revelation, and we're trusted with it all. And that's how it's revealed,
So my personal philosophy with it, right, is that I feel like that to the degree in which you're disciplined, that is like where your initiation process starts. As far as like, because in the Bible even speaks about this, how there were people in the olden days who were like Christians in namesake only. And if you like, my last film I did was called Laodicea, and I was inspired to do the film because he said God had told these people that, like, you are neither hot for me and you're not even cold. Like, you're not like a super believer or a non-believer. You guys are just like lukewarm. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all just like, okay, I kind of believe in God, or I kind of like worship Jesus, whatever. And he said, because you're neither hot nor cold, I'm going to spit you out of my mouth. And as I think about that, I'm like, it's so crazy. What they're saying, what God is saying, is like, I would rather you be a non-believer than for you to essentially half-ass me. Like, oh yeah, I'll believe on Sundays when I need to, I'll do this or do that. So in the Bible, you hear a lot of stories about like people that were in the towns and in the villages that were just, okay, I guess I'll listen to what this guy has to say, whatever. He's walking around the road preaching to people. But then you have the people, some of them became disciples and things like that, who were just like, no, I'm going to listen to what he's saying and really try to understand it. And Jesus, a lot of time, talked to them people differently. If you really pay attention to the Bible, he talks to them literally differently than he talks to everyone else. It's like he has his core group of like, no, you guys get it. Everyone else, they say they are in namesake, but they're really not. And it makes me going back to like the discipline thing. I think if and this is my personal philosophy, and I tell my friends about this stuff. Like, I feel like in order for you to, especially if you're a Christian, if you're professed to be a Christian, right? I feel like you have to have a certain degree of discipline to even initiate yourself into understanding the dark sayings, the dark mysteries, the parables. Because from my research, from my study of all these different religions, the one common thing that I found in every single religion, and I talked to these people in a Twitter space not too long ago, and they telling me about like the Anunnaki and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's all true, and that's very interesting stuff. But I kept on asking them, I'm like, yo, what is the core thing that made all these people special though? And they were like saying all these things. I'm like, you guys are not getting it. Is they had a supreme amount of discipline. Like their discipline was out of this world. People were like starving themselves for 30 days, 40 days, and 40 nights. You had people that would just like go through the immense suffering and keep asking God, like, what else do you want me to do? Like their discipline was out of this world. So to bring it full circle, it's like that discipline, to have that discipline. If you don't have that, you can't even, you wouldn't even be able to know where to start, because anybody that's on a spiritual journey, you probably can attest to this. There is a certain level of discipline that you just have to have. You just have to have it. I believe that's my personal philosophy as far, that discipline to just like, okay, I'm not going to masturbate. This is not healthy for me. I can't, go try to sleep with my friend's wife or girlfriend. I can't be a drunkard all my life. I can't just be gossiping about random people and things like that. And just from a more proactive standpoint, I have to read the words. I have to meditate on the words. These are this is not my words. This is what the Bible says. Meditate on my words. Read the Bible, basically read the scriptures over until you get it, until you understand what we're trying to convey to the people. And if you're not even interested in that degree, that pedigree of discipline, it's going to be hard for you to even become initiated in what people call mysticism, which really is just Christianity for what it really is. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
that's just
that word discipline. What I'm thinking about, it could be replaced with hunger. How bad do you want it? Mm-hmm. That's for anything. Like how, what I'm saying, Michael Jordan. How bad do you want to be the best? Mm-hmm. How bad do you, what you gonna do? I'm gonna get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and shoot 1,000 free throws. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. While Clyde Drexler, whoever is still asleep. My competition is sleeping. The early bird gets the worm. I'm getting up before you. Will Smith, you hear people who done something, and Will Smith's like, listen, I'm going to stay on the treadmill longer than anybody around me. And there's a voice that tells me to get off the treadmill. Right. We're done. I'm tired. And I have to learn that voice, the voice of the accuser, the ego. Say, no, listen, I'm going to stay on. So I'm going to get clear on this voice in me that's telling me no, and we need to stop, and we need to, because we got dreams, we got goals, we got ambitions. And
it's almost like if you're reading something, is don't go deeper, don't look more into that, don't study this any further. And you've probably heard these voices on your journey, like, nah, don't. It's almost like certain things, like the accuser, Satan, as one would put it, is there almost like a roadblock, like almost like you don't need to know this, don't keep on reading. And some people that are more weak-minded, weak in their psyche and their spirit, they'll literally listen to that inner critic and be like, you know what? I won't try to understand Ecclesiastes because it's too much for me. Yeah. I won't try to understand.
And they're right. They're 100% right. As a man thinketh in his heart, so shall he be. And it's too much for you. But until you say, you know what? I'm going to get it. I'm going to give myself over to this, and the discipline that it takes to read books about. Listen, when I wanted to be a full-time podcaster, I stopped listening to Joe Rogan. And I started listening to podcasts about podcasting. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I started studying and discipline. So I know the type of there's etiquette. There's, you need to describe. If you're doing something for audio and you're showing, hey man, look what I got right here. Isn't that cool? Awesome, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And put it down. Listeners have no idea what the hell I just held up. So you have to just etiquette, like, oh wow. So if you pick something up and show it, you got to describe it. Okay. He held up his cell phone and he's got the new Samsung Galaxy S21 or whatever. Like there's etiquette, like what,
and shout out to Joe Rogan.
Yeah. I love Joe Rogan, but it's like, if you can listen to Joe Rogan or you can be Joe Rogan.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You can watch YouTube videos or you can make YouTube videos. Where are you at? Man, I got a lot of people that look up to me and listen to my work and they want to be doing what I'm doing, but it just ain't in them, bro. Like it just ain't. I'll give you the game. I'll give you I don't hide nothing. Like I'll tell you what I do, how much money I make, what's paying, what you need to focus on, how you need to title your videos. Listen, on all of it. And I'm giving you the game and folks still won't do it. They'll tell you, man, I want it, but you ain't implemented nothing that I showed you.
And that brings you back to like, that's why I asked you earlier. I'm like, is it, and you said you did answer and say, yes, it's a bit of both. But when it reminds me when I was actually like, is it in you or is this something that can be taught? Because I think about that a lot. Like a lot of the stuff I do, like 60 page this there, 30 page just writing these things there. I remember my brother coming up to me and telling me, he was like, he don't call me Blue, he called me my actual name, Shaquille. He was like, bro, you keep on trying to get everybody else to be on this page that you're on or to understand, oh yeah, bro, just do this and do that. He's like, bro, what you don't understand is you just got something about you where you just know how to do these things. And I'm like, and it makes me think more and more in life. It's like, am I wasting time trying to lead people to water that's not going to drink the water? And then I think about it, I'm like, nah, I'm not wasting my time because
it's for that one person, bro.
It's for that one person.
It's for the younger version of yourself that wants to learn and needs somebody to teach them. So you drop in the breadcrumbs and be like, hey man, follow me, bro. I got you, cuz. Just keep doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's like Jesus.
Yeah.
They're like, man, why are you talking all this dope, deep stuff, man? Nobody listen to you. Because literally 5,000 people walked away, but 12 of them kept following. And within the 12, he had, 6 and 3 that he told everything to. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's for them. Yeah. It is who and what you say it is. And it does pay off if you feel led to do it, like for sure. And I think I had to learn a lesson recently. I tried to open up doors for other people who didn't want to do the work. And I thought that they didn't know how, like you said, but it just wasn't in them, but somebody else though, keep giving the game, keep putting it out there, because the next person who needs it, they'll take it and they'll bring it to the next level. And I think you'll get paid. And you call it karma, you know what I'm saying? For like of you, being a good person, you know what I'm saying? And not hiding it. Cause there's some stuff you don't need to hide. I can tell you, listen, I can tell you everything I'm doing and you still won't do it. Like that should tell you. But for the person who wants it, go get it, young man. You know what I'm saying? It's out there for you. And anything you want to do, everybody deserves to do. I say, that word deserve is deep. Cause I always say, man, people deserve to do what they love for a living. I wish people could wake up and write music for a living. People deserve that thing that's in them, that if they're out of alignment and they just, man, I was a garbage man, bro. I was digging ditches. I was cleaning toilets all for years.
And that was a dishwasher, bro.
I was not in my alignment and I wasn't happy. And now it's still it blows my mind that I get to wake up and do what I love for a living. I want everybody to experience their bliss, man. And I think everybody deserves it, but they don't deserve it. The person who deserves it, who goes out there and gets it, who's willing to do the work, who's willing to be consistent, who's willing to discipline themselves. Bro, I can't tell you how, man, I'm almost at 500 podcasts. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, man, I don't want to talk to these folks today. Man, I don't want to talk to these psychics today. Man, I had a long night last night. I got to wake up and talk to another psychic, another pastor. Man, I don't even want to talk to this dude, man. And I said, here we go. Let's make it happen. Let's make somebody needs what I got. Lord, speak through me. Help me to have a good talk. It ended up being some of the best conversations ever. You know what I'm saying? But I had to say, man, you signed up for this. Remember where you was. Remember when you was driving them trucks. Remember when you was listening to podcasts.
Goes back to that contrast thing.
Yeah. Yep. I know I can contrast it of riding in my truck, listening to Coast to Coast AM for 4 hours. Right. And now I'm making 4-hour episodes that people can listen to. So you pick and choose what you want to do, you know, and you show up. Anybody can show up one time. Yeah. But keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. And you get another idea. We're creative. We got all this, you know, channeling and ideas and inspiration. Okay, let's start this kind of podcast. Let's work on this kind of music. Now, hold on. I've been branding this for 5 years and I got a fan base. So now I'm going to work on a Christian metal album. They might not buy it, right? It's like, hold on. Yeah. I want to do all of it. I want to do all, but we can't. You know, we have to pick our lane and we got to stay in it. And the creative gets real, you know, you have things like all your friends are starting MLMs. They're selling CBD oil, and then they're selling essential oil, and then they're selling vacuums, and they're trying to get you to join. And they ain't successful with none of them, but every other month they got something new. And it's like, hold on, man. The truth is, any of those products, any of those MLMs would have worked if you would have stayed at it long enough and worked it. You could have been good at selling CBD. You could have been good at selling essential oils, but because you were interested in the instant gratification, you weren't in it for the delayed gratification on the back end. Man, I got 500 episodes. And they all bring me money in every day while I'm sleeping.
So when you were making your first episodes, starting off the podcast, right? Did you, because I know how it is, you know, the first couple episodes, you don't get a lot of views and things like that. What kept you like going? Like 500 is a lot.
Hey, it's the opposite for me, bro. Because because when I started was early and it wasn't as crowded as it is now. So I started podcasting in like just messing around like 2010 and just doing blog talk radio and then doing open discussions with people. And I would all I needed was a dope title and a dope thumbnail, which you had to actually know how to use Photoshop. Like back in the day.
You didn't have Canva.
No. And now everybody's got amazing thumbnails and everybody's got amazing titles and everybody's got amazing content. But so early on out the gate, man, I was getting way more than I am now. Now it's so crowded. Like, you know, it's hard
you were in that sweet spot.
Yeah. I was early. No, I was, this was before podcast was even a thing. We didn't even call it that. We called it a radio show. You know, even though it wasn't on the radio.
I remember Blog Talk Radio. I wasn't into it, but I would listen to Blog Talk Radio. That was
so like now. So you know, how do you stay consistent when you don't feel like nobody's listening? Because at first they was, 50,000 views on a whack episode, making way more money on YouTube back in the day. You know what I'm saying? So now, if I was to do sometimes I'll do a YouTube video, we get 300, 400 views. Bro, I was getting 50,000, 60,000, 20,000 on everything I put out.
See, that's the double-edged sword. That's the double-edged sword when it comes to the comparison. I mean, the contrast.
Yeah,
thing.
man.
Because
I had to learn not
it's
to.
the other way around now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say it's all relative though, because the nature of the internet, the nature of society, the fabric of it was way different 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Than it is now.
I had to teach myself that now I feel like everybody who listens is an engaged listener. Like, even though it was 50,000 people, I don't feel like I had 50,000 engaged. Like, if the algorithm makes it hard to find me, if you found me and you keep showing up, like, you really resonate with it. You know what I'm saying?
That's the perfect mindset to have about it.
I had to change it because it still comes up. You know, it's like, man, why? got 400 views or whatever. You know what I'm saying? When I had 40,000 on a whack episode, man. Knowing that the content is good, you know?
Would you rather have 40,000 and only about 10 of them go to your Patreon? Or would you rather have 400 and out of that 400, 80 people go to the Patreon?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's all like, it's a visual semantics game, like how people just put words on things. I think that's how it is with the visual. Some of it is so meaningless that it's like it doesn't really affect you negatively, like, because a lot of times we just see things visually and like, oh, that must be cool, it has 1 million views. But then you look at the content, it's like there's nothing here for me to, you know, it's like what is this?
Dude,
like,
that's every day for me, dude. Yeah, but like, in comparison, like you gotta I don't listen to a lot, you know, of like even teachers and stuff. I like to try to like just be inspired and I don't know what a lot of people are doing as far as like in my niche, I guess, but I do watch a lot of different people's stuff, and it's changing. Like the game is changing, like and I'm keying in on some stuff now as far as it had gotten really easy to do a podcast, and but there's some things that you probably should do to keep people engaged and highlights and stuff like that. So I am making some shifts now, but yeah, the comparison is different, but yeah, people are more engaged now. So it's hard to put two and two together, because you would think that out of 50,000, you would have more people who would have engaged, but now even it seems like the numbers are less, but more people are supporting and showing up and commenting and all that kind of stuff, which is strange. So I don't even know if these numbers are real, I'll be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? That's another realm too, you know, whether people are buying fake views and stuff. I don't know.
I watched a documentary about like basically the internet and the algorithms and things like that. And you would be surprised at how much BS is going on. You may get a video you got 300, 400 views the first week. That could really in reality be 3,000, 4,000 views. We don't know that. We really don't know, you know? But the only thing you can know, and this is why to me it was important for me to do like real world events and do real world things, because I would look at like my views and stuff, and I'd be like, okay, that's fair, I guess. But I would throw an event, like I did an event in DC called Horizon, and it was like almost 100 people. So we was packed, like we couldn't let anyone in, like, or it would be like a fire marshal type of thing going on. And I'm like, okay, the internet is not a really good judge on what is really going on in the real world, because if I based everything on the internet, like I did my first film, I put it up on the internet called Rose. It was like 350 views. Still to this day, it has about 350 views. And then I did another film that had 250 views. But when I did my event, people were talking to me about my films, like, yo, I watched this. Like, everyone that would come to me like, yo, that one film you did, this and that, like, you know, I checked out your short film. I'm like, oh, okay. That 300 is 300, but that's 300 real people. Like the Spartans, bro, like that's real, just 300 packed out an event, you know? So it's like, it's all relative. So it's like that 50,000 Blog Talk Radio is like, okay, yeah, that era is kind of over. I know what you're talking about. Like, that's when you could get 500,000. I remember back, and this is not even that long ago. I remember when I was just like producing music and writing music for people and stuff in 2011, 12, having 100,000 views on a YouTube video was going viral at that time. People don't even realize this. Now you need like 100 million views.
Oh, yeah.
If you had 100,000 views on YouTube, you were viral at the time. But with all that said, I'm being long-winded. Just to wrap up, do you have any regrets?
No, nah. I mean, probably. I mean, there was things I would, you know, rather have done different for sure. You know what I'm saying? But I'm comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like in my skin and with the choices and stuff. Because I mean, I think the regrets come if you don't learn from them. Right. You know, so if you got something that you regret, Is it something that you can learn from so that you don't let it happen again and you don't do it? Whether you treat somebody a certain way, you say something, or you're short with somebody, so everything is a learning experience, and you got to chalk it up to that. So anything that I would regret would just show me something about myself that I need to change or need to fix, and it's up to me to do that. So the whole regret thing, like, you don't regret it if you're gonna keep doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
right, yeah.
if you regret it, then how bad do you regret it? That's repentance. That's remorse. Showing remorse. You know what I'm saying? So, which is the name of the game. And so, but no, I'm happy, man, with the way everything turned out, for sure. And everything's made me who I am today. And I'm super in love with life and my family and God and just how everything turned out. And I'm just super. I manifested my dreams, and it feels like a dream every day. I'm not lying. Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah. Man, listen, I'm just blown away just even speaking about what we're speaking about in such a candid way, because you can't go to a bar and speak about these things. Like, I can't just call my family members up and get into a conversation about what we've been talking about with them. They're gonna be like, hold on, what? Are you coming? Are you about to come and visit us? Or what? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
yeah.
So
what you mean Jesus is the son, man? What you talking about?
Yeah, what, man? You better.
Or if you say that, and again, we go back to does that mean you say he ain't literal? No, I didn't say he's not literal. He can be that too if you want him to be,
right. Right. So, you don't really have these conversations. So I do appreciate them. I want to do one last thing before we get out. And look, guys, if I'm seem like a novice at podcasting, I have not. Truth Seekah done did 500 podcasts. This is my second one interviewing.
You're doing great, man.
Doing a guest podcast. So please do not be too hard on me. But I was reading this book yesterday called the Christian in Full Armor, or Complete Armor. And I put it down in my notes. Okay, it's a passage from. Okay, here we go. It's from William Gurnall's book, published in 1655, The Christian in Complete Armor. And I wanted to end with this, so so it's coming in at this point. It's a passage that's found in chapter 5, where Gurnall describes the subtlety of Satan as a troubler and an accuser of sin, which is so crazy because you used the word accuser earlier in the podcast. I was like, oh, that is crazy how this comes all around. But so in the chapter, this is what I highlighted. It says, first, he will persuade thee that thy duty and thyself are hypocritical, proud, formal, etc., because something of these sins are to be found in thy duty. Now, Christians, learn to distinguish between pride in a duty and a proud duty, hypocrisy in a person and a hypocrite, wine in a man and a man in wine. The best of saints have the stirrings of such corruptions in them, and in their services these birds will light on an Abraham sacrifice. But comfort thyself with this, that if thou findest a party within thy bosom pleading for God, and entering its protest against these, thou and thy services are evangelically perfect. God beholds these as the weakness of thy sickly state here below, and pities thee, as thou wouldest do thy lame child. How odious is he to us that mocks one for natural defects, a blear eye or a stammering tongue. Such are these in the new nature. Meaning, right, this is what I got from that we will be imperfect and we will fall short at times. And Satan will remind us of it every time. You even see it like the people that you're around sometimes, like your peer group. You notice them people, like, it don't matter what you're doing, they'll like point out like, well, you said this thing and then this, you'll notice that. And my thing is that we must remember that God knows that we are not perfect and doesn't judge us by our human shortcomings, but by who we are as a total being. And Martin Luther King's unfulfilled dreams, and this is like a crazy left turn, but it all makes sense. In Martin Luther King's speech, Unfulfilled Dreams, he echoed the same sentiment as Gurnall when he said, God does not judge us by the separate incidents or the separate mistakes that we make, but by the total bent of our lives. So with that being said, Truth, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I really enjoyed it. We went on probably like an hour and 30 now. I didn't know it was gonna last this long, but I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do.
Yeah, I enjoyed building with you, man. And dude, keep it up. I definitely kept a good conversation going.
Yes,
an interview for
yes.
sure, but more of a conversation. Being able to connect with that person on camera for the first time. I love doing what I do, and I enjoyed connecting with you, man. So
I want the audience to know this was going to be an audio only podcast. Truth kind of like, he was on video, so I said, you know what, I'll come on video. So yeah,
I enjoyed it so much, man. Thank you so much. And yeah, my website and all that stuff is truthseekah.com, truth SEEKAH.com. I've got a free meditation available for your listeners. It's called the Throne Room Meditation, and they're next level. I hire voice actors and sound effects and all of that within these guided meditations. You meet angels that talk to you, and they're insane. So make sure you guys go check that out too. So
yeah, you definitely taking it to another level. Talking about that dedication thing that we was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have everything in the description for my YouTube. I'm gonna throw this up on Spotify. I'm gonna have all your links and everything in the description. Again, I thank you for coming on, and there's going to be, I'll talk to you after this podcast, but thank you, Truth, for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man. Means the world.
No
Thank
problem,
you so much.
man. Mm-hmm.